Hello. Hi, Patrick. Okay. Hey, Justin.
Yeah, Feroz, we'll start in a couple of minutes.
Right, all right, I'll be waiting. Hello, Patrick. It looks like you're on mute.
Hey, bros. All right.
Hi, Justin. Am I audible?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me just make your audio so that these guys can hear.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Can you do a small mic test or can you say something?
Sure.
Oh,
Hello.
perfect. So everybody can hear you now. You're connected. Okay. All right. You can go ahead and start sharing your screen and
Or
start your session. I'm gonna mute yourself here, and I'll put up a volunteer here. So if they have any questions at the end of the session, they'll unmute and ask you questions if required. Okay.
sure thing. Sure thing.
So we
Thank
have 45 minutes till 1:30. We can finish the session. Okay.
you. Sure. Are we good to go, Justin? All right. Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon to all of you. And thanks for joining us on this weekend towards the AOS community event. And before getting on to the session, a quick introduction. I'm here, Firoz. I go with a long name, Abdul Rashid Firoz Khan. And hey, Patrick, I'm sorry I was not able to meet you in person, but then we will definitely hang up by the next time. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for joining us during this AOS community event. And this is going to be a lightning talk on Azure for SAP workloads, right? And I'm here, Firoz. I'm a Microsoft MVP on Azure, and I'm the founder and CEO of Codes Azure as well. We are based out of India and Middle East, taking care of cloud migrations, setting up IoT cloud, and migrating SAP workloads as well, working as a partner with Microsoft. And I have my email ID here. So in case if you have any challenges or if you want to come up with any community support, you can feel free to reach me out with this email ID. And without taking much time, I would like to hop in here. And yes, this is going to be a talk with Azure for ACP workloads. And thank you so much towards the AOS community on hosting this event. And of course, a lot many work on hosting and making this event to be happen by Justin and this team. The Pintera Technologies, thank you so much as well for sponsoring and making this event to be happen with a positive note. This talk is going to be about the Azure for ACP workloads, and we will see about the common terms and the meanings that you need to understand. And we will also be speaking about the ACP certified offerings that we have and why particularly we need to move towards Azure for ACP workloads as well. We will also be having a quick architecture discussion on deploying the ACP NetWeaver with NETP on Azure VMs, and we will see an architecture discussion again for S4HANA in high availability, which supports the disaster recovery on Azure for you. So here we go, exploring Azure for SAP workloads. And I hope you people should have been working with SAP, right? You should have a basic understanding about what SAP is, what an ERP system is about, and like how an ERP system can be built, and what is SAP S4HANA, what is SAP NetWeaver, all those things. And I would encourage, like, let's make it interactive, right? It's not rather like it's going to be like a kind of knowledge sharing where I would like to hear from you as well, and we should make it interactive to know about how SAP can be hosted. Okay. Can I know, like, if we have any folks here who have been working with SAP workloads, or how is your experience on Azure? Have you been with Azure before? Do we have some volunteer who can unmute and we can encourage people?
Yeah, pros,
Uh,
can you hear me?
yes, yes, you're audible.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
have one volunteer physically.
Okay, okay. So, have you been into Azure?
She's coming.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Fine. Hello. Hi.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have experience in Azure. Actually, I have created a virtual machine in that. In Microsoft League, I have created a virtual machine in that and used some features of that Azure.
all right, thank you. And anybody there with SAP experience? Okay, okay. Let me start from a quick scratch, right? See, SAP is said to be not a tool of Microsoft, but then it's an integration support that we have with Microsoft now. Okay, it's just same like how Microsoft started supporting with the open source environment, like we have NoSQL with Cosmos DB and all of the steps, right? Just same like that we have SAP now, where it's going to be like more than an ERP that has been built into like one client of system, and we can host the workloads on Microsoft Azure's data center. So I repeat, it's not a product or it's not a tool of Microsoft, but it's going to be an integration support that we get it across here. So Microsoft and SAP has a long time history. They have been working together for more than like 24 years of experience on building their business landscape. And now Microsoft Azure provides the platform to host the SAP workloads. And they have like all the internal business landscapes, which has been into Azure data center now. So it's co-innovative by design. Microsoft provides the compute environment, and it's hosted and it's verified by SAP engineers, right? And it's approved by SAP. They say that it's going to be like SAP certified offerings, right? Azure and SAP joins together. So when they define some machine sizes, it's verified and then it's approved by Microsoft, right? And that's exactly where we go. We say it's co-innovation by design. So it's more like you go with a data custodian. They verify the offerings which is related to the products. They verify the offerings which is related to the license that they have, and the machines as well, right? The machine size, the compute machine size that we have as well. So it's co-innovative by design. And it also supports you with seamless offering. So seamless offering is like Microsoft is constantly working along with SAP on providing the latest availability of the versions and the tools that we have, the global scalability, the security, the components that we used to speak about. And they also give you an enterprise grade of resiliency that could be achieved as well. So SAP is recommended, right? And here is the list of like different customers, and we have like a different core of fields where people prefer Azure to host their SAP workloads. So we have people like Samsung, we have Shell, okay, where they have their ERP systems that has been hosted on towards the Azure environment. Curious about your options that we have with SAP on Azure. So when you use Microsoft Azure, you can reliably run your mission critical SAP workloads. And you can use you can think about scenarios like scalability, compliant, and enterprise proven platform as well. So you get the scalability, you also get like flexibility and cost savings on the Azure factor as well. And these are all like different types of tools that can be hosted with the Azure environment. You have SAP NetWeaver. So SAP NetWeaver can be used for organizations who need the compute and storage resource for their SAP NetWeaver applications. So that can be like with a minimal time and without any like lengthy procurement cycles to be performed. So to do this, we go with the compute. We use Azure virtual machines, and you can deploy your classical applications like SAP NetWeaver based applications over here in Azure. We then have HANA. So in Azure, there are like two services normally that can be used to run the SAP HANA database. One can be Azure VMs that we can use, or we can even go with this large instance. You see SAP HANA on Azure large instance. So SAP HANA simply refers to an Azure VM. For running your SAP HANA, it has like more and stronger conditions. We have the infrastructure needs that has to meet the demands for running the NetWeaver or like any SAP applications. It's simply like how you spin up a virtual machine and you're used to deploy the workloads, right? So just same like that, we have this SAP HANA, which works with Azure VMs. We then have this SAP HANA on Azure, so large instance. It's a unique way of solution. So just in addition to provide the VMs for deploying and running the SAP HANA, no, Azure offers you the possibility to run and deploy SAP HANA on a bare metal server, which runs dedicatedly for you. It has been assigned to you, and the server hardware is embedded in larger stamps, which contains the compute capacity, server capacity, networking, and the storage infrastructure as well. Curious about why SAP on Azure, right? So we were been speaking about security. We have been speaking about privacy and all those factors. And here, if you could see, we have the security which is taken care by Azure AD environment, right? Or you speak about a single sign-on to be performed. We have the security that gets into the play. We then have the Office apps. So you want to integrate like any, let's say for a sign-on, you need to use Office 365 applications, or you need to take up an automated action, let's say, for example, using Power Apps or anything. Then we can go with this platform. We also have a team collaboration that can be done using Microsoft Teams or any tools that can be used from the Microsoft 365 environment as well. We do have the integrations to go on with business apps. We can use Logic apps. We can go with, let's say, Dynamics 365, or we can even use like Salesforce kind of things. And we do have the integrations that goes with analytics. So you want to do any kind of analytics environment, then we stick on, right? We see like evaluating the components to do the analysis with ETL or ELT kind of operations. We can use Databricks, or we can even use Power BI for reporting and visualization based on the metrics which we have received. And we then go with the analysis service, like we can use AI or we can use ML, or the machine learning or predictive anomaly detections that can be performed. We have chatbot kind of things. You can develop chatbots, okay, and we can make it interactive too. We do have the system again, the data factory. We have templates. So this data factory is like it allows you to build advanced pipelines to automate data movement and the data transformation. The SAP connectors over the ADF will often be used to the integration runtime on which we can communicate with the SAP system. And therefore, we can go with the installation of enabling the data replication as well. We have data where we can call the data towards the SAP systems, not just with the any DB, but then you can go even with an Oracle database, or you can even go with like you can call it from the clusters like SQL database or data warehouse to do the ETL operations again. Streaming, you can always stream the data. So the integration that goes with IoT, or you can go with Event Hub or Stream Insights to be performed as well. So this is like one strong recommendation that we say you stick towards Azure for SAP workloads. It can be any IaaS or PaaS offerings that we have. It always has the integrity, and it helps you to host your SAP products with ease of work. You have the access keys, you have the REST endpoints, you have the APIs, right? Where they provide you with a code template as well, and that makes your way of work to be simpler to perform as well. Here's about the advantages that you have, right, to go with Azure for SAP workloads. You can reliably run your mission critical SAP workloads here. You speak about scalability. The scalability can be done on demand. It can be scaled up within a matter of minutes that we do. And it also provides an enterprise proven platform. So any compute cluster that you're going to spin up on Azure dedicated for SAP is said to be approved by SAP. Okay, it's not like you go, you spin up. It's they verify the configurations, they verify the compute capacity, the memory that we have, and that's exactly where we land up with providing the workloads to be on mission critical. You also have scalability and flexibility. So cost saving is like you plan for a migration, right? Let's say you're planning to migrate your workloads towards SAP on Azure. In that case, you will get a cost cutoff. We get normally like a 40% of cost cutoff when you plan for a migration. And maybe if you have a license which is said to be valid, you can still get a more cost cutoff, or you can even go with a enterprise agreement with Microsoft where you put up like a reserved instance. You promise that you'll be having the next 3 years or 5 years of workloads to be running on Azure, and there you get an expanded partnership, which helps you to do a better cost saving as well. We also have this running SAP applications across development and test. So you have the support with Azure DevOps that's available, and you can connect always towards a staging or a prod environment. It helps you with CI and CD. You use the repos, right? You use Azure repos, and that helps you to put up the workloads again to be on Azure. So to work with Azure, you need to know again like the supported systems. We have been speaking about three things: NetWeaver, we have been speaking about SAP HANA, and we also were speaking about SAP HANA on Azure. So it's all like you use NetWeaver now. You have like any DB which can be supported, and here is the list of operating systems that it supports as well. You have like Oracle that goes with Linux that we have, and you do have like a Red Hat version of Linux that it supports, and we even go with SUSE Linux, or from Windows we can go with a Windows Server environment as well. And not just that, you can also find we have SAP HANA. I've been hosting it with a virtual machine where you go with the database to be HANA, and the operating systems like for the bare metal service or for with the SAP HANA, we can put it with Red Hat Linux, or we can go with the SUSE Linux Enterprise as well. It's about exploring SAP HANA. So it's going to be with the database, and the database can be, it's not that you should always keep it on cloud. You can also go up having your environment to be at on-premise or with a hybrid cloud to be set up. So most of the organizations work with having the database to be at on-prem, and they prefer for a hybrid cloud architecture. Transitioning your company's SAP workloads towards Azure will introduce you towards a new context, and you need to know about the terms and the meanings that we have with SAP related to the deployment on Azure. So this is all the features where we have with SAP. It supports for hybrid, transactional, and analytical processing. It supports you with anything related to OLTP and OLAP operations. We do have the data integration and quality of delivery which can be given up, and it supports you with the advanced data processing engine too for you. You see, like we would be having most SAP products which can utilize the new DB layer that we come across. And this is just on curiosity. You can take a screenshot of this link. If you are new to SAP on Azure, or if you're new to SAP, you can always go with this link and you can see how you can host and run the SAP workloads. Let me start with the common terminologies and meanings that we have for SAP on Azure. Here is one such thing: you have landscape, right? Landscape is that you will be provided with an empty landscape, and you are going to put up all your SAP assets within it. The SAP landscape will include, like, you might be having a separate prod environment, or you can even keep a staging environment to be available. And we have the system. So system is said to be the combination where you have the database and you have the SAP layers that gets involved. It's typically your ERP development system that we can come across, or it's going to be like a CRM prod system that we used to give. We do have the environment. So the environment is like you might have like one or more SAP components which can be grouped, and it can perform a business function. So you can have a separate environment for testing. You can have a separate environment for DR, or you can go for a prod environment. It's more like what we do in a normal delivery and deployment, right? For development all. It's just same like that. We stick towards an environment here. And you also keep your components to be added up. We have ERP central components. You have your individual SAP application components, and it can be based on a traditional ABAP, or it can be even with Java technologies that can be put up with. You do have this AnyDB with SAP. AnyDB is like any third-party database that we are going to choose to host and to run on Azure environment. So SAP landscapes are said to be a way of organizing the SAP servers into all these different layers that will be defined by how the system is going to be used for you. Typically, SAP deployments are divided into like different landscapes. So we have dev, we have quality assurance, we have prod, and it's like a smaller implementation which may only have two landscapes, and larger implementations may have like four or more landscapes as well. Your SAP landscape is like often hybrid from a database management system and SAP applications point of view as well. So it's like a mixture of like you have NetWeaver, you might have S4 HANA, or you might be having like SAP HANA and other database which would be added up as well. We then have the landscapes. You see here exploring about the SAP landscapes, which I was speaking about. You have the dev, you have quality assurance, and the prod environment that can be added up to. So here it's almost like I've been you prefer with what kind of environment that you need to put up, and you can stick on towards having your components to be added for the individuals here. Okay. We also have like a smaller implementations which may have like two or larger. It may even go with four or more components to be added up. So the landscape is always like you will be having a combination of DB layer along with the ACP applications as well. I repeat, NetWeaver is gonna be a part where it's a deployment of an SAP NetWeaver system on Azure, and HANA is like you'll be having deployment of SAP HANA system on Azure using SAP HANA certified offerings. Here is about identifying the SAP certified configurations. Okay. So consider, like, let's take a business case. You might be having your deployment team who is going to start to plan moving its first SAP workload to Azure. And thereon, you need to provide guidance on the prerequisites, deployment options, and SAP certified configurations available to you when deploying the SAP products in Azure. So it's all about like you need to know about licensing, you need to know about the system sizing that we prefer for, and the certified VM instance size that we use to stick across, right? So this is like a general prerequisites for SAP support towards the public cloud environment. To implement the SAP workloads on Azure in a supported manner, the customer should follow all these SAP certified configurations, which consists of a combination of four elements like SAP product. You might be having OS in the relation database in the Azure offering as well. You see here, we have the SAP product, we have operating system. So if you could just set back to the previous text, which I was speaking about, you should have seen. I was mentioning about the version that we have. Okay, I was mentioning about the operating system that it supports with, and yes, of course, with the compute capacity as well. Here is about the Azure offerings. Azure offering is nothing but the size of the VM that it supports, okay, or Azure VM that it supports for you. So here is the three main options when deploying the SAP products in Azure. We can go with Azure VMs, infrastructure as a service, which is available. Like when you put up a NetWeaver machine, you can stick on towards A series, or you can even highly go with the compute intensive machines, which is said to be up to D V3 series that we have. We then have the SAP HANA on Azure, which can be put up with a bare metal. So you use the enterprise machines. So enterprise machine is like you go across, you come with the NetWeaver certified offerings there, and we can even go with the graphic related machines like memory optimized G series machines that can be used for bare metal. Apart from that, the SAP Cloud Appliance Library also provides you with M series. So that's said to be like for large prod environment with SAP HANA workloads, we can use it. Or you go with a purpose built instance for largest SAP HANA production workloads to be given up. So this is all like a type 1 class, or let me say a list of SKUs that is approved by SAP. And that's exactly what we call it as a certified offerings with Microsoft Azure. See here we have the SAP certified operating systems that it supports with. You go with Microsoft Windows Server. You can use starting from 2008 R2 Data Center, and you can go up to 2019. You also have the SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. You have the support for Red Hat Enterprise, and we do have like the Oracle Linux support as well over here. Followed by this, you see we have like the SAP products and the kind of way it supports with the machine size. Uh, I would not be able to share the stick, but then you should be getting a recording, I guess, from the iOS community. Either you can take a screenshot as well to see like what are the different size of machines that it supports with. You have a SAP Business Suite software that supports with the guest OS of Windows, or it goes with Oracle Linux, the SUSE Linux Enterprise, or with the Red Hat Enterprise as well. We do have the relation database support with the SQL Server, or you can go with Oracle DB2 to be hosted too. And Business All-in-One, where it's going to be like a package where you use the Windows with support of again like SQL Server all. We have SAP with business objects, so BI with Windows, and there's nothing like a relation database support that we have. Finally, the NetWeaver, you go with Windows or SUSE. You do have like SQL Server or the Oracle that can be hosted too. And that's not the way we still have like the products which goes with developer editions. So here you could make sense now you have like a list of the products and offerings that it supports with. We have SAP S4 HANA. We have Shoot on HANA with OLTP operations that can be performed, or we can even go with HANA Enterprise for business warehouse to be performed as well. Here are the other SAP certifications that it supports with. We have SAP Business One on SQL Server. You can have like a guest OS with Windows, and you also have like Linux that it supports with, and we have the relation database with SQL Server. VMs are of like different types. It supports with hybrid, and we have the documentation that's available as well. If you could go with Microsoft Learn or with docs.microsoft.com, you can find the documentation of how you can host the workloads for the hybrid commerce platform. Here is about the NetWeaver with any DB on VMs. A few like architectural discussions that can go across. So you could see this architecture component, right? The very first thing, this speaks about hybrid. You see an on-premise network, and you also have the DR setup with a secondary region. And to expose this hybrid network, we have an express route that we use, okay, a component which helps you to set up a hybrid cloud environment. And thereon, like we go with deploying a virtual network. So VNet, where you get a dedicated network, you put up a virtual network, and thereon, you will be having subnets that can be added up as well. So here it's going to be like you put up VNet and you will be having multiple subnets to be added up. You can put up a front-end facing subnet, or you can even have like a subnet which holds for your internal applications. We do have the NIC, the network interface cards that we can hold across. So virtual network interface cards that will help you to communicate with the virtual machines. At top of this, you see the VMs that we use to stick across. So Azure VMs will host the application tier and the DB tier components. We have like we can put up a jump box, right? Or we can go with the ADDC to be deployed as well. We can also have the SAP central service cluster and the application servers that can be hosted too. Let's say I will take this jump box, right? Jump box is nothing but it's going to be like a bastion host. So the Azure VMs will run a hardened operating system instance that the administrators will use to connect to the other virtual machines. It can run either with Windows, or you can even go with Linux. And we use a Windows jump box to run the tools like HANA Cockpit, or for HANA Studio, we go with a Windows thing. Let's ADDC is one other kind of thing which we use mostly in the business case scenario. ADDC, the Active Directory Domain Controllers, will provide the authentication and the authorization service for Windows and for Linux operating systems too. We then have the load balancers. So Azure Load Balancer instance will be used to distribute the traffic to Azure VMs in the app layer and in the data layer. We then have the availability sets. So in a highly available configurations, the Azure VMs will be serving the same role that can be grouped into distinct availability sets. It's going to be like at least like two VMs per availability set. Alternatively, it's going to be in Azure with multiple zone deployments, including the VMs serving the same role that can be deployed into distinct availability zones as well. And as I said, you have the NIC here, the network security group as well. So NIC is said to be attaching the VMs towards a virtual network, and network security group where we can restrict incoming and outgoing connections as well. So it's like infra subnet traffic, in a virtual network that we used to get. We then have the disks and the Azure storage. The Azure VM disk will provide persistent storage for SAP workloads, and Azure storage, like it provides a range of storage service. It's also used by Cloud Witness to implement the quorum for Windows Server failover clustering. Finally, we have the express route and the gateways as well. So express route and gateways all like for hybrid connections. We go with this. Here is an architecture for SQL NetWeaver on SQL to be deployed. I mean SAP NetWeaver with SQL to be deployed. You see, the first thing that we do is AD synchronization, and it performs a single sign-on there. We then have like the traffic which flows via the express route. Okay, you have like the express route where you get the traffic to be routed. So Azure High Speed Express Route Gateway Connect will be used to connect with the on-premise to Azure VM and other resource securely. We also have like a sales order request that reaches. So it's almost like the sales order request that flows into highly available SAP ABAP SAP Central Service, and then through SAP application or the servers running on Azure virtual machines, which will scale out the file server in an Azure VM. We go with the request that reaches with the SQL Server. So the request moves from the SAP App Server to SQL Server running on a primary high performance Azure VM. We then have the primary and the secondary servers. So the data changes are replicated and it's kept on sync here. The data replication is handled through SQL Server always on in synchronous mode from primary to secondary and enabling the zero recovery point objective as well. We do have the data persisted on the premium storage. So for high performance, we are using Azure Premium Storage here. And at top of it, we have the data changes that are replicated to the DR point. The VMs on the disaster recovery region can be used for non-production work to save the cost. And finally, we have the changes. The SAP App Server with the ASCS on DR side can be in standby shutdown mode and can be started when needed to save the cost as well. Here is about S4 HANA on the Azure VMs. So it's almost like same. You go with the S4 HANA, you use the VNet, right? The jump box to be hosted, load balancer, NSG all. But then we have the express route again and the gateways that comes across. So here the part S4 HANA is set to be on cloud, right? It supports with DR as well on the Azure environment. And here is all the architecture, which speaks about the enterprise grade, prod level systems, and how it can suit your business needs as well. So this configuration can be reduced to a single virtual machine too. Okay, I'm here putting up multi-tier one. And you see the functional workflow over here. So this workflow illustrates how a user request flows through an SAP landscape built using high performance Azure VMs and in-memory SAP HANA database running on Azure VMs for the maximum scalability and performance. So this system takes the advantage of Linux OS clustering for high availability, premium storage for performance, data replication for high availability, and that's set to be with the HSR, the HANA system replication, and a full disaster recovery to be performed as well. So here in this example, we have the user initiates a sales order with SAP Fiori interface, a custom application interface, or let's say the other steps as well. The traffic flows with Azure high-speed express route gateway. We do have the sales order then, the sales order request that reaches ASCS and to the PaaS or AS. So the request flows into highly available SAP or ABAP SAP Central Service. Thereon, the request is sent. The request reaches SAP HANA. Request is sent from an app server to SAP HANA running on an Azure VM optimized for large memory and the workloads. We do have the data changes that are replicated synchronously to the high availability replica. We have primary and secondary running on SAP certified M series virtual machines with the right accelerator that are clustered to. We have an in-memory data of SAP HANA. So you have the high performance Azure premium storage, and we have the data changes that are replicated asynchronously to the DR replica thing. We do have this data changes which reaches the DR part, and the changes are replicated asynchronously to the DR instance thereon. Also, it's almost like we have 10 minutes, and I would love to hear from you if you have any questions on the SAP HANA part, which we have been discussing so far. Can someone turn on the mic for me, please? You can let me know if you have any questions with SAP HANA. Yeah, thank you. Any questions for me? I see freezed up with, time for lunch and super excited to move in for lunch or what? All right, team. Was nice connecting with all of you. And thank you very much, Jasjit, team, and Patrick as well, the entire AWS community. Glad to be a part of it. Hosting, I mean, it had been like before the pandemic, we had a in-person event, and now again, like after a struggle of long days, we have been joining hands together to host the events. And Patrick coming all the way from to host this event too. Thank you very much, and see you all again on an AOS community event. And thanks for joining. You can follow up. I mean, either you should be getting the recording, or you can even follow the MS Learn where you can find the SAP to host the workloads. It had been like a new technology, but then we have a vast kind of support when you compare it towards the other cloud service environment as well. I wish you all a happy learning, and thank you very much for joining us too. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. So, let's see, are we here? Thank you. Thank you, Feroz.
Just you have been doing a really good job. Thank you very much
you.
for your
All
support.
right. Take care, man. Bye.
Thank you.